You know, there were songs that people would sing in the first century, and a lot of the songs went like this: to the God who was, the God who is, and the God who will be. And these were the pagans who would sing these songs. In a lot of the temples, especially the temple of Zeus, the song would go, Zeus who was, Zeus is, and Zeus who will be. But the early Christians started singing a different song. And the song they would sing is the God who was, the God who is, and the God who is to come. And it's not that the God who will be wasn't a true statement, but they believed that he is the one to come, that God was pressing into this world, that he hadn't given up on this world, that God was moving into this world to make all things right.
So when I'm on an airplane these days, about cruising altitude, it comes up that I'm a pastor. And the person, especially if they're around my age, will ask the question something like, why? And within like 10, 15 minutes of the flight, this conversation almost always comes up. I tell them something like, I think in the 70s we looked back on our churches and we asked, how could we have been so racist? And then I think in the 90s we looked back on our churches and we said, how could we have been so patriarchal? And then I think today we're looking back on our churches and we're saying, how could we have been so selfish? We spend so much money on ourselves. And I think the primary answer to that question is because we forgot that. We forgot that part of what it means to be the people of God is to see the world the way God sees it and the way it will one day be. I mean, this is the prayer Jesus taught his disciples to pray, that God's kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven. That on earth, because the church exists, things are different wherever churches are, because we're seeing the way the world one day will be. There's a popular idea the last couple hundred years has floated around American Christianity that heaven is, in the clouds and there's harps and basically it's this, progressive commercial in the sky. And what we call the Christian idea of heaven today, the first Christians would have called that heresy, because the Christian idea of the age to come was that what God did for Jesus, he's going to do for every part of creation. He's going to restore this world. And the call of the church is to lean into that, into the God who's pressing into this world.
Yeah. So I think these people, they believe the prayer Jesus prayed in John 17, that when Jesus said, my prayer is not that you take them out of this world, but that you protect them from the evil one. Something God has revealed to me in Scripture over the last year, and we've had some great conversations about this, but when you think about the cities in the first century that were probably the most evil, most corrupt, most sexually charged cities, like Ephesus and Corinth, and the list could go on, the Bible calls these cities books of the Bible because God didn't give up on these places. And the people of God believed that the Spirit of God filled them in a way that they weren't called to go and escape and go start their own communities, but they were called to live in those places and to make a difference and to be in the marketplace and to engage people with purpose. And it worked. The book of Ephesians is written to these people in the city of Ephesus with all temple prostitution and witchcraft, and the list of evil could go on. And not one time does Paul ever suggest that if you're serious about Jesus, you need to leave this place. Instead, Ephesians is written to people, teaching them that the question to ask is not, do we press into a city or a context to make a difference? The question was, what do we wear as we do? And the answer is, you wear the armor of God as you press into a place to make a difference, that the Christians were taught that we march not from the world, we march into the world.
So we wrote this book because we believe in the church. We believe that God has called a group of people to make the world a better place for the love of God. We wrote this book because we were tired of seeing people that were our age, people that were our friends, walk away from the gospel because they heard a story that was just too small. We wrote this book because we were tired of people hearing the word gospel and thinking that that had something to do with some other time and some other place. We wrote this book because we believe that the God of Jesus is committed to this world and this time and this place and making this world better, because God created the world and said that it was good, and we think it still is. We wrote this book because we care about bringing heaven to earth, and we think God cares about that too.